Wanted to share this fun film fact with you because on this day in 1971, an actor picked up a cheque for £40,000 for doing absolutely nothing. Incredible. But that's seemingly because, of course, sadly for him, he'd been written out of a part of, shall we say, historical film history. As ever, let me explain. Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here in the very heart of London, and as ever, nice to see you. Hope you're all keeping well, fine and dandy today. When you think about film history, there's so many roles, aren't they, that should have been, could have been, actors who were going to take parts, didn't take parts. We told you recently, didn't we, how the beautiful Mitzi Gaynor, who's still with us, by the way, still looks beautiful, was down for the part originally of Sugar Cane in the 1959 classic Some Like It Hot. Sadly for her, Marilyn Monroe saw the script and figured she could be a better sugar. Yes, how things and times change, eh? But it's interesting also because you look at, the roles that might have been. I was recently lucky enough to meet none other than James Bond himself, not Sir Roger Moore, who's obviously, as a lot of people know, one of my particular favourites, but George Lazenby. And George, of course, if you look at his story, brilliant guy, loved the way that he bamboozled himself into the role, never acted before, but just looked fabulous on camera. Really, what was to worry about? But while bosses in 1971 on this day were deciding should they carry on with George Lazenby or look for someone else, cast their eye towards this man. That's right, John Gavin. Now, John had been a very successful actor in many sort of roles, including opposite the beautiful Lana Turner in Imitation of Life way back in the late 50s, and then, of course, in Psycho, amongst other things. But this was going to be his very big break because Sean Connery had decided that he didn't want to return to the role. That's who they were hoping to lure back. Cubby Broccoli, of course, thought, well, offer the money and they will return. Apparently Sean said it wasn't enough money and he also wanted a slice of the box office profits, so they said no. Looked like they were going to look once again at George. And then John emerged on the scene, did a few tests, had a few meetings, all of that sort of stuff, came out to Pinewood, and everything looked honky-dory. He, of course, went off to do a celebration dinner with his chums at a restaurant in Mayfair, all paid for, I might point out, by the production company for 007. And then in the morning, he received this devastating phone call. It didn't actually come from Cubby Broccoli. No, he wouldn't bother doing anything like that. It came from a very good, of course, associate producer who basically had to say to him, bad news, John, you're out the picture, literally, because Sean Connery has now been persuaded to return. That was the deal. And what happened was, in order to placate him, they gave him a cheque for £40,000, which was an incredible amount of money in 1971 for his troubles. Of course, being tarnished with the you nearly got the part but you didn't get the part was very difficult, wasn't it, as one can imagine. Of course, this similar story was told to me by none other than a good friend of mine, Sir Roger Moore, who basically said, he'd been muted for James Bond way back, long before Sir Sean Connery. I kid you not. But then they decided to go with an unknown because, as we then knew, Sir Roger had already had something of a career, partly out in Hollywood, Ivanhoe, then The Saint, and they felt that they needed a brand new, fresh face. And that's how Sean Connery got the role. Nothing to do, of course, with him being devastatingly handsome and having a very much a connection with many of the ladies on the casting sort of panel. Let's just leave that there. But isn't it a shame when you look back in film history what could have been? Because when you look at John Gavin's work, he seems a brilliant actor, very good looking, but seemingly came up at the wrong time, or more importantly, at the wrong time, not necessarily with the star power. Either way, he was never bitter about it, he laughed about it, and as he pointed out, was able to buy a house with the money for not becoming James Bond. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.